Hey, it's 3.2, step 2, and we're looking at literary aspects. Oh, step 3, I mean 3.2, step 3, literary aspect jigsaw. And this video is specifically about the ghost motif. So if you chose this, you are in the right spot. A reminder that a motif is an object or idea that repeats itself throughout a literary work and includes symbolic significance. And when we're talking about the ghost motif, we are looking for specific references to ghosts, using this word, using the word spirit, using the word haunting, or something similar. Look for also for words like vapor, swirls, clouds of gas. You'll see O'Brien use words like that as well. Descriptions of anything that isn't corporeal, it isn't... it isn't related to the body, or it isn't a physical substance that is substantial, all right? But rather more like gas or what we would think of as a ghost. Descriptions of being out of one's body are included in this. Feeling hollow, I think also connect. That'll come up later in the book. Or without substance. Also, we will see O'Brien talking about animating the dead. So that means making the dead come back to life. And it's, through imagination and storytelling. But this feeling of, giving them back some ability to act on their own, speak, and give the illusion of aliveness. So dead people seeming alive, that'll pop up multiple times in the book. Okay, so what are some examples in this first reading? We hear on page 9 that the GIs all carried ghosts. This is about Ted Lavender's death and about the men waiting for Lee Strunk or whoever it might be to resurface from the tunnel. They would sit down or kneel, not facing the hole, listening to the ground beneath them, imagining cobwebs and ghosts, whatever was down there, the tunnel walls squeezing in. So we have a reference to the word ghosts there. Strunk re-emerges from the tunnel, rising from the dead, right out of the grave, effing zombie. Lee Strunk made a funny ghost sound. Right then, Ted Lavender was shot in the head on his way back from peeing, and then they even he even has like that sound that he makes too, right? The ooh, which is the sound a ghost would make. So those are all good examples. We also have this example on page 56. This is at the end of the chapter called "On the Rainy River." O'Brien, the narrator, says, "My whole life seemed to spill out into the river, swirling away from me. Everything I had ever been or ever wanted to be. I couldn't get my breath. I couldn't stay afloat. I couldn't tell which way to swim. A hallucination, I suppose, but it was as real as anything I would ever feel. I saw a 9-year-old girl named Linda who had died of a brain tumor back in 5th grade, and many thousands who were later to die." So we don't hear like the word ghost here or spirit or anything, but we have this feeling of him dying, really, his life seeming to spill out into the river. And so again, that feeling of losing yourself, swirling away from me, not being a solid physical body, right? And then he also uses this word hallucination. So when there's a hallucination, it's when you see something that seems real, but it is not, in fact, real. And so that's similar to a ghost as well, right? The idea of seeing something that is not real or not physically present or is only spiritual connects there. And then he talks about actually seeing people who have already died and then who are later to die in the future, people who he hasn't even met. And so this all seems connected to the ghost motif on really some different levels in some interesting ways. All right, well, what are some of the effects of this literary aspect? First of all, it certainly creates that eerie feeling, that spooky feeling, because ghosts are the physical manifestation of the invisible world and the dead interacting with the living. And so it creeps us out, right? It also, I think, reminds us of the characters' proximity, their closeness to death, and their experiences watching their friends die. There's a fine line between dead and alive. One moment, Ted Lavender is popping a tranquilizer and going to pee. The next moment, he is dead. And so that transition or that closeness that these GIs have to death, I think is reminded when ghosts are described. Sometimes it creates a welcome feeling of escape or letting go, of flying free, of peacefully floating away. There is that escape part of it, where you're no longer tied to the things that are weighing these GIs down, the physical world, and instead you can go wherever you want. And then I think this last one, the describing the dead as alive, creates the feeling that the narrator and characters can't accept those sudden deaths. They're haunted by the memories. And then in some instances, and I think especially towards the very end of the book, this will be a way to keep the dead alive in not so negative a way through storytelling. So to reanimate the dead by creating a story, bringing them back to life so that they can be remembered. Connections to themes? Well, the power of voice to create truths. The descriptions of the ghosts certainly make them feel real, even if they are only imagined. The burden of war stories, the impact of war on the psyche, memory, and beliefs of the soldiers. What is it? How does it create this burden of war stories? And how are they continually haunted by the events? Innocence, guilt, and redemption. How does the narrator and other characters escape guilt or blame, being blamed, being held guilty, by disengaging with reality, by disconnecting and sort of floating away from the real and the physical? Story and imagination as creative forces. How does telling stories allow the narrator and other characters to keep memories of loved ones alive? And what's the point in doing this? Is that macabre? Is it inappropriate? Or is it a way for those who are still alive to pay some tribute to them? To pay some tribute to them. Okay, so I hope you've taken some notes now in your packet and that you will find lots of good examples of the ghost motif as you continue reading.